Hey, everybody, welcome to a very exciting episode of Think Your Way to an Epic Life. Today, I have the honor and privilege of interviewing Athena Brownson, who was an absolutely incredible skiing athlete. She has faced so much adversity. Just in that time, a little bit less than 10 years, she had to have 17 surgeries. And one of those surgeries pretty much messed up her immune system. And so now she has Lyme disease and all kinds of autoimmune problems, yet she has a very successful real estate team in Denver, Colorado. And we're going to talk about how she's overcome adversities that most people really could not function through at all. Not only is she functioning, she is thriving. So buckle in and hang in till the end. And also, guys, if you see what she has to say is beneficial to someone else, if you know of someone else who's in pain or having health problems, please subscribe and send this to the people that it could help out. Thanks so much. Let's get going. So Athena, thank you so much for joining us on Think Your Way to an Epic Life. And you have had 17 surgeries from being a professional skier, 17 different surgeries.
We can add a couple to that since skiing too, but I'll let you continue.
Oh my goodness. Okay. That you're just on first name basis with all the docs and all the techs at the hospital and all that stuff. So it's interesting that you've gone through so many things in such a short lifetime. Yet you're still getting up every day. You've got the grit. Explain to me how important grit is.
Thank you. And first of all, thank you for having me. I absolutely love, being inspired by everyone that you interview, and I'm honored to be here. And when it comes to grit, I look back at my years as a professional skier, and at the time, I didn't realize that it was the best business school life, training that I could have ever asked for, because it was teaching me mental toughness from a very young age in a way that I don't know that you can learn if you're not thrown into it necessarily. So when I was, if I talked back to a coach, or if I, wasn't listening, like, there were consequences for my actions. It might have been hiking the run that day, or, not doing burpees mid-run, whatever it may be. There was always, if I had to be accountable to showing up the way that I said I would show up to my coaches. And I believe that as I did, as you mentioned, I got hurt quite a bit. I blew 9 ACLs. I've had a couple spine surgeries. I mean, you name it, I've probably broken it. But when you're young and, motivated, I guess you could say, it was always, okay, I blew a knee. If I do A, B, C, and D, then I'm going to get to, back on snow in 6 months. So I always had this mindset that even when we're facing challenges or adversity in whatever form in your life, that if you put the work in to really dig deep, because your mind is going to tell you to just lay on the couch and not do anything, and not put in the reps that are necessary to heal and recover. And I think it's really easy to go down that path. But if you have, for me, it was coaching to say, really keeping me on track, it was building mental toughness and grit in a way that I had no idea at the time, but has been the most critical, pivotal, part of my life today, because we all experienced challenges in our lives. We all, I don't know that grit is something you have until you're in the midst of a very difficult situation and you don't have a choice. But I realized that through the toughest times in my life, I gained the greatest character traits. And grit is, I say unfortunately because it gets exhausting, but it really is one of them. I mean, you get forced to when you're in a bad situation, you can go one of two ways. You can put your mind in a positive place and figure out solutions for how you're going to keep moving forward, or you can do the opposite and kind of wallow in the mud and get stuck there. So I think it's a very conscious decision, no matter what adversity we're facing in life. So that's a long-winded answer, but
Well, it needs to be long-winded because so many people, like you said, your body after I pulled the ACL off of my femur once skiing, and your body tells you, stop, do not do anything, do not move. Yet even then, it's been over 20 years, even then, the day after the surgery, they put me on a continuous motion machine.
Yep.
That day, like let's go.
Immediately, yeah.
And so you mentioned that coaches were a big part of your grit. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes. So again, this is something that I should probably contact my coaches now to give them a big thank you, because at the time as a young athlete, when you're put in situations where you might be climbing mountains in the middle of a blizzard, freezing, and your brain is telling you that there's no way that you can keep going, but you have a coach that's hiking behind you saying, pick those boots up, pick up your feet, like, let's go, let's go, let's go. They were the motivating factor that kept me accountable to pushing myself beyond where I thought I could go mentally, because so much of this is mental. So many of the physical challenges we endure, so many, even workplace relationships, like these are all things that your brain initially wants to say, retreat, like this is not what we want to be doing. But I believe that in any arena, whether it's real estate or any type of business or just life, we need to have someone that can oversee the entire picture and help us understand how we can, where we're lacking, where we're doing great, and how we can improve, the areas of our lives that are not necessarily on par with the person that we want to show up as. And for me, my coaches were they were the ones creating the character and the grit and resilience that I so value today, and have probably been the factors that have saved my life as I deal with health challenges. And because of my relationships with coaching as an athlete, I carried that into my real estate career heavily. So I've never not had a coach. I'm a huge believer that we all need coaching in any arena of your life. For me, I've been fortunate enough to meet incredible coaches all over the country and work with them and learn from them. And they do the same thing. They say, we're looking at your business as a whole, and this is where your blind spot is. This is where you're struggling. Now, can we hire that out? Can we delegate it? Or is that something that we need to work on perfecting? But I really believe that having that trusted cabinet, so to speak, of advisors in your life and business that you can go to, and that they genuinely want to help you be the best that you can be and keep you accountable to that. I think that no matter what you're doing, no matter what business you're in, even if it's just going to therapy because your job right now is being a mother or a father or whatever it may be, like I'm a firm believer that we can't do everything on our own, and we've got to put the ego aside and say, where am I missing the ball? Where am I missing the mark? How can I improve? And then having a coach or a mentor that can help, even masterminds. Like I just got off a mastermind call, and we bring different challenges to the table, And these are not things that we should all be doing on our own. And I think real estate can be very isolating in the way that it can be a one-man sport, so to speak, but it doesn't have to be. And when we learn to really collaborate and to support each other and realize that there's enough pie out there for everyone, and have, for me, coaching creates innovation. It's always getting my mind attuned to the different opportunities that there are, because I think real estate's not a one size fits all business. I mean, it traditionally has been coached that way, and you're told to make a trillion cold calls and knock on doors, and that doesn't work for everyone. So making sure that you have trusted mentors and advisors and coaches that can get you excited about the activities that feel authentic to you, because that authenticity is going to shine out onto your client base. And it really creates more of a giving mentality than a transactional mentality. And honestly, I don't know that I think being an athlete was the best business school I ever could have asked for. And it taught me the importance of having that trusted group of individuals and coaches that are going to have your back. And that means tough love sometimes. Like it doesn't mean that they're just going to tell you everything great that you're doing. It's, I want them to tell me straight where I'm missing my mark so that I can improve. And that's where growth happens.
And thank you for that. It is so important, I think, for somebody who's listening to take this lesson from you of that I'm used to coaches. And so I just naturally go with coaches. If you're not used to coaches, my goodness, give it a try, give it a chance. It's so important who the coach is also. So let's go back to your athletic career. You started at the age of 16, and when did you stop?
So I like to say I was on snow before I could walk, because my dad put me in a baby. He was a professional skier. He was a speed skier, and he would literally at 3 weeks old put me in a little baby Bjorn and take me, like, probably going 60 miles an hour at least down a mountain. I think you'd get arrested today if you did that. And then, I learned to ski on my own right after I learned how to walk. So 2 years old, I was on skis. I got my first sponsor, which is kind of what enables you to go pro, so to speak. When I was 14, I got my first goggle sponsor. They were called electric goggles. And I, that's when I really started to get excited at all the opportunity that was there. But it took a huge amount of work and a huge amount of discipline and accountability, that my coaches were the ones that were keeping me accountable to showing up at the gym before skiing and after skiing. I mean, they kept us as very well-oiled machines, but with the best possible intentions for us. They knew that, we're young adults that are have the ability to really morph our mindset. And so at 14, I got my first sponsorship. I was in Vermont. I remember it like it was yesterday because I was so excited. And once one sponsor came in, it started to kind of snowball. I got sponsored by Under Armour clothing, and then Dynastar skis and Lang boots, and pretty much any piece of equipment, Skull Candy headphones that you could think of. I started accumulating these sponsorships because I was doing really well in competition, and all of these sponsors would come watch. And we were doing, by the time I was 16, I was invited to my first X Games. So that was kind of, that at that time, freestyle skiing was not yet an Olympic sport. So that was kind of the peak of where everyone wanted to reach. Like that was the goal. Now, unfortunately, I blew my knee out in practice that year. But again, we were taught that if you blow a knee or if you have an injury, you have, I'm fortunate in Colorado. We have some of the best surgeons in the world. I mean, I am on a first name basis, and I always joke that they should give me a punch card or something for discounts. It hasn't worked yet because my dad's the same way. Like I said, he's the same adrenaline junkie than I am, and he's 70 years old and still racing cars and ski racing and kicking everyone's butts. So the psychosis runs in the family. But I truly, I had the right people around me to keep me mentally in a place of healing and abundance and getting excited for getting back on snow instead of kind of wallowing in the fact that, oh, now I don't get to do X Games because I just blew a knee during practice. So it really, it's a short-lived sport. Like I don't know many professional skiers that are over the age of like 30, 35 max because of the injury. Everyone gets hurt all the time. Unfortunately, we're throwing ourselves off 100+ foot jumps and spinning and doing backflips, and anything you could imagine that can get hurt will get hurt. So it's definitely a short-lived sport, but I was fortunate enough to, from ages of 14 to about 23, I was on a world tour pretty much all the time except for when I was rehabbing something. And we would ski about 300 days a year, starting in Colorado, moving towards California, and then we'd go over to Europe. I lived with a little Oma and Opa in Germany every year for a couple of months. And then when it became summer in the Northern Hemisphere, we would head to the Southern Hemisphere where it was winter again. So it was a nonstop circuit for, about 10 years. And it finally, the last time I blew my knee, my doctor looked at me and he said, okay, Athena, at the time, I believe I was 26. He said, if you do this again, you're going to need a knee replacement before you're 30. So I really need you to think about that and like think about the repercussions of this sport that you love so much on your body long term, because there are consequences, and those are generally not the things that I'm hearing from my coaches. Coaches want you in peak physical conditioning so that you're not getting hurt. But I was very grateful to my doctor. Shout out Dr. Hackett, Stedman Hawkins, and Vail. And he really gave me some perspective on this is just a part of my life that has formed me into the person that I am, but that it's not the only chapter of my life, nor should it be. So he really helped me to understand what my goals as a whole in life were. And did that involve having a knee replacement before age 30? No. At that point, I had broken so many things. I just said, I think it's time to hang up the towel, go to a less contact sport. I laugh when I say that because I don't know if real estate's that much of a less contact sport. It's still pretty wild, but I haven't, knock on wood, broken anything. And everything that those incredible years of skiing taught me have carried, so heavily into the way that I run my business day to day, the accountability that I kind of put on myself to get the activities done every day, the basics that help you to be successful in real estate and not have these huge ebbs and flows. That came from skiing. It came from coaching. And it really, it taught me the importance of never forgetting the foundation of everything is the basics that we do. So, I mentioned prior to us beginning that my dear girlfriend, she had introduced me to the owner of her company, and he ended up becoming my mentor.
Your
And
real
I
estate
can't,
mentor.
yeah, for real estate. And I cannot stress enough how important it is, I feel, for young agents or really any business person to find someone that you admire how they do their business and how they live their life. Like, is this the type of person that you want to be? And if so, follow everything that they do to a T, take notes, go on showings with them, do open houses, watch them prepare market analysis. I mean, anything that I could possibly do to emulate his business, I did. And I 100%, like, that was what gave me the tools that I needed to get my career going in real estate. Now, once it got going, then it was time to find a coach. And when you said finding the right coach is not easy, and it's everything.
Very true. You have to find someone that works for you.
Exactly.
And the
And I
one
think
thing, I'm
a
sorry,
lot
go
of
ahead.
times it's really easy to get sold on a coaching program. It gets really exciting, and it gets, whether you're going to a 1-day summit of theirs or just having Zoom conversations. Especially for me, I get really excited about things, and I want to implement all of them and say yes to everything. And I think it's really important to understand that although they are trying to portray that they're interviewing you to see if you're a good fit for them, that you have to interview them just as heavily to make sure they're a good fit for you. Because if you're finding a coach, a mentor that has a completely different ethos than you do, say they're very transactional and they just want to get through as many deals as possible and not stay in touch with their clients, is that the type of business you want to do? Because for me, it wasn't. I wanted to find a coach that believed in creating deep, long-lasting relationships that I could then be that trusted advisor for people going through the biggest investment, purchase or sale of their life. So really, I went through a couple coaches that just, of course, I still learned from them different tactics, but we didn't necessarily see eye to eye. And it's because I didn't interview them also. And then, after learning the hard way, I have made I found the most incredible coaches all over the country that I generally, like, in the program I do, it's 6 months. Every 6 months you change coaches, and they're people that I will be in touch with for the rest of my life, that are constantly there to be a support system, but they'll also call me out on where I'm not doing well, and where I'm not showing up as my best self, and really help me to understand how I can pivot and change that, or whether that's something that is just absolutely not a strength of mine. Because I think finding and knowing your strengths and weaknesses is often difficult, especially in real estate, because we want to be good at everything and do it all ourselves. But the reality is, teamwork makes the dream work. Like you said, I could not do what I do, the business that I do, if I did not have an extremely strong, competent team that I trust with my life behind me. And also finding those individuals is difficult. So really understanding what your why is, what your ethos and what characteristics you want to portray and to build your business around, and then really being able to interview coaches, mentors, employees, different agents based on those things, because you're so set in, this is who I am, this is what I want out of my business. And if you're not in alignment with that, then we're probably not going to be a great fit. But while still having someone that will call you out if you're not showing up, because a lot of times it can, we can get overwhelmed as agents and forget to do the basics and forget to show up for the little things. And then our business goes like this 60 days later. So, I'm a firm believer that everything good in life and business comes from the people that you're surrounding yourself with, and we get to choose that. I think we forget that a lot. We get to choose who's in our lives, and what greater gift could we ever ask for than that?
It seems to me that what you're saying in a nutshell is relationships are the most important factor in your success.
100%. That is what has, 10 years in, that is what has kept me just as excited as I was in day one. Only the exciting part now is that most of these clients, most of my sphere, I'd say 98% of my business is referral based. It's either past clients or past client referrals or sphere referrals. It's all people that I, know in some form or fashion. And because I believe so much in relationship-based business, my business model really caters to that. So I'm, sending out a form at the very beginning where I'm learning all of their favorite foods and restaurants and treats, so that I can be sending them gifts along the way that match with what they love. And honestly, I think a lot of times real estate gets it wrong because we close a deal and then never talk to the client again. And I always say that just because the deal is closed, that's like our relationship has just started. I want to be there for anything you need, home-wise or otherwise, but I want to be the first person you call if you are in a bind with your furnace and need a great HVAC contractor, or you want to do an addition to your home. Like, I want to be that valuable resource for my clients for decades to come. And that all comes from building strong relationships. And that's the way that I believe you create a fulfilling and lasting business that doesn't just run you into the ground and burn you out, because that's also very difficult not to do in real estate.
Very true. So you have overcome so much adversity, Athena. It is mind-boggling. You said that you had 17 surgeries during the time that you were an athlete for a living, and then you are facing all kinds of health issues now. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it is a perfect example of when you think you have a plan for life, God or the universe laughs at you, because I was at the peak physical condition, and I had my last neck surgery, which weakened my immune system enough that I started getting all of these very strange illnesses. This is about 7.5 years ago. And I'm very fortunate. I had a doctor that said, hey, let's test you for Lyme disease. Something's underlying here that we're not seeing. You're a young, healthy adult. You should not be getting all of these very strange infections, E. coli. I mean, you name it. So I told him, I'm like, you're crazy. I've never even seen a tick before. Like, I've never been bit by a tick. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure enough, I had like 7 out of 10 strains of Lyme, along with the 2 co-infections that a tick will also generally carry, that are almost worse than Lyme. And Lyme is a scary disease because it attacks whatever your genetic weaknesses are. So it shows up differently for everyone. And for me, it showed up in the form of autoimmune diseases. So I very quickly got diagnosed with Lyme, and it snowballed very quickly into having very severe autoimmune diseases. The most problematic and painful one that I have been dealing with for about 7 years now is that my body overproduces antibodies and then attacks the protective covering around my nerves. So my nerves are exposed. If anyone has ever had nerve pain, you know that it can be completely debilitating. And that actually created what's called an electromagnetic frequency sensitivity. Basically, that means that anytime I was on my computer, phone, in a heavily Wi-Fi building, grocery store with LED lights, I would get electrical burns all over my body just from being exposed. So I ended up living in a RV for about 6 months that wasn't connected to electricity, and I would wear these lead gloves and a lead blanket and be writing like $1 million contracts and just thinking like, is this real life? And when I look back at what I've overcome in the last 8 years of being sick, these are things that I'd say 95% of people go on disability and stay in bed, and I don't blame them at all. I am so fortunate that I have a job that I love so much and a team that is so incredibly supportive, because real estate really has been and still becoming the why that gets me up every morning. Having those relationships with my clients, that's my why. So having something to take my mind off the fact that I'm generally in, more pain than most people I hope will experience in their lives, and being able to, be very transparent and authentic about what I'm going through with my clients, with anyone I can, just to create awareness and support. I firmly believe that that's why I'm going through what I'm going through right now. And for the last 2 years, I've been doing 4 days of plasma transfusions every 3 weeks. I actually had surgery on my port yesterday, so it's not very happy. But my it the I don't even know if grit covers it, because yes, I learned grit through injury, but this is an entirely different level of when you're in pain and sick 24/7 for over 7 years. It's really difficult to not let your mind get the best of you and drag you down a very negative spiral.
So
And
how do you do
I
it?
I'm so lucky that I have a job that I love, but I also have, practices in my daily routines that I know that if I'm not doing them, my business will suffer, my mental health will suffer. And these are, simple things. Take 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes at night to write out your gratitudes, to write out your affirmations, to write handwritten notes to people, or just send a message letting someone know how much they mean to you, and really taking it as an opportunity to figure out how you can give back through challenging times, because you never look back on your life and think, oh my gosh, I learned so much about myself, and I grew so much through easy times. You look back at the most difficult periods of your life, and while I wouldn't wish this on anyone, I know that unfortunately I've learned the hard way, but I have learned so much about myself, who I want to be, who I want to show up as. And I don't know that I would have learned that had I not gone through what I've been going through. And I still have a long road ahead of me. So really understanding what things in your life bring you little bits of joy, so that even when you're in huge amounts of pain or discomfort or whatever and I'll say, like, I don't believe anyone's adversity is greater than another's. Like, we all have challenges, and they're, in our lives, the biggest thing that we've ever done. So I never like to compare challenges, but I think we can all relate to the fact that there's a lot of adversity out there. And if we're not keeping ourselves attuned, like tuning a guitar, to how we're keeping ourselves in a positive headspace, how we're gaining and practicing mental toughness and self-care, it really, we live in a busy culture, a hustle culture, and I think a lot of times self-care can get thrown out the window. But if you're not taking care of yourself and your own, and I have by no means mastered this. Like, I'm a workaholic. It's something I'll always be working towards. But if you're not taking care of yourself, on every level, whether it's family, relationships, self, spirituality, your finances, and your work, if you're not taking care of every aspect, then you're not going to show up as even close to your best in any of those arenas. So understanding what it's going to take to find those moments of joy that will kind of lift you through difficult times, and having the reminder in the back of your head that no matter how hard what you're going through is right now, it is leading to something greater than you could ever imagine. Otherwise, you would not be going through it. Like, you're gaining characteristics and qualities about yourself that you probably don't even recognize at the time. But
wax on, wax off.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. One day you'll look back and say, wow, I am the person I am today because of this. And for me, along with real estate, like, I hope that I can connect with a huge amount of people dealing with chronic illness and help them to create their toolkits for staying, keeping their head above water during really difficult times, and to just share my story in hopes that people will not feel alone in their own story, and to give people like an idea of, I should be on bed rest, for years. And I show up at my office every day, and it's not easy. Getting out of bed, I have to convince myself like I'm getting ready to run a marathon just to get out of bed. Like, none of this is easy, but you can show up during difficult times, and you can show up for yourself, and you can take the hardest experiences in your life and pivot that mindset into, okay, how can I use this as an opportunity for growth? Because otherwise you can, go down a very dark hole very quickly.
Gotcha. So what is your mental diet? How do you keep yourself smiling like that?
I love that question, because it's been a journey and I'm sure it will continue to be a journey. But I know that if I'm not, no matter how bad I feel, I know that if I'm not getting into the gym, 3 or 4 days a week at least, even if it's just to walk very slowly on a treadmill or do very light weights, like, I know that my mental health will suffer if I'm not getting a little bit of exercise. I know that if I'm not taking the time either, I used to be a morning person because of skiing. When I got Lyme disease, Lyme is actually nocturnal, so it wakes up at night and makes your body very uncomfortable. So I've become a night owl. But with that, I've created routines that end my day on a positive note. And that is a gratitude journal of writing down different things every day, 5 different things that I'm grateful for that day. And then I am affirmations. So for me, that's, I am healing. I am capable. I am good enough. I am strong. Just really reinforcing positivity into your head and reminding yourself of the power that you have. And then finally, like, as a real estate agent, I think we can all relate to the fact that we spend a lot of times in our car. And we live in this incredible time where we have a huge access to information. We have podcasts, we have audiobooks. Like, yes, sometimes I like to blast some rock and roll or hip hop getting ready for an appointment just to pump myself up if I need it, because some days I really do. But being able to, if I'm going to show houses for 6 hours and I get to listen to one of my favorite, I've listened to Ryan Serhant's book,
Sell like Sirhant. Yeah.
yeah, multiple times in my car. I've listened to Atomic Habits multiple times. I've listened to You Are a Badass. I mean, you know, gosh, I'm trying to think of one of the names I just read, but it'll come to me. But I'm constantly trying to find different ways to feed my mind with not only positivity, but inspiration. Because I think when you are hearing from other successful people that you admire, what they're doing to become the best versions of themselves, like that's the fact that we have access to that narrative, and then use that to inspire and motivate us to try something new, or even just to show up, is something that we all should be taking advantage of. I mean, I've become addicted to your podcast. I recently did a podcast called Realtor 180, that now I'm hooked on. I mean, there's so much information out there, and there's so much opportunity for us to learn, not only personal development and business development, but also character development. Like, I guess that's personal development, but it would be almost a tragedy to not utilize the tools that we have in 2024 that we have free access to for the most part. You're doing yourself a disservice by not utilizing that time to be, to grow and learn. And I'm constantly learning from these incredible people and like blown away. That's a gratitude of mine usually, is I'm so grateful that I got to listen to, let's say Mauricio, who just, the owner of the agency, just wrote a book and it was fascinating. Or the CEO of my company, Robert Refkin, wrote a book. Believe it's called No One Goes Alone. And it's all about the power of teamwork. And the fact that I get to listen to these incredible human beings is something that motivates and inspires me so much. And it helps me to really visualize, and visualization's a big one for me, because that's what I learned in skiing. If I could land a trick in my head, if I could close my eyes and I was doing a new trick that I'd never done before, if I could close my eyes, visualize myself landing it, I knew I could land it. So the same thing, I believe, is true in any aspect of your life. If you really take the time to understand, the basics of how to get yourself in a position where you're capable of going to the next level, and then visualizing what that looks like, there's nothing that we can't do.
I agree 100%. Athena, I cannot thank you enough. This has been so powerful, so informative. Thank you for being so vulnerable and inspiring and encouraging our listeners. We appreciate you greatly.
Well, I hope so. And I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to chat with you. And listeners, I'm always here as a resource. If you're going through something, like, please, my eyebrows always look intimidating, but I'm really nice, I promise. So please never hesitate to contact me if you're going through something, and I can lend any advice that I have, and understand that we're all human and figuring it out, but together we can get through a lot more than we could by ourselves.
Amen to that. And we will put all your information below so they can click and get a hold of you. Thank you again.